In today's program, we'll look at organizations dealing with the problems of homelessness in Santa Barbara. We'll talk with Officer Keld Hove of the Santa Barbara Police Department, Rolf Geyling, President of the Santa Barbara Rescue Mission, and Jennifer Parks of McDermott-Crockett Mortuary. I'm David Starkey, and this is Santa Barbara. We're here in the Santa Barbara Public Library. I'm talking now to Officer Keld Hove. You are in restorative policing. What is that?
So restorative policing is something we've had with the department for probably about 15 years now in various incarnations. In the last 8 years, I've been responsible for running that program on the streets with the help of Officer Burley and various volunteers and civilian employees as well. And what we do is we pretty much look at people that are not benefiting from the normal law enforcement types, such as citations, arrests, and the tools that is usually employed by law enforcement to stop criminal behavior.
And so how are they responding?
So what we have is the people I focus on are the people that are mentally ill typically, drug and alcohol issues, sometimes combined dual diagnose. Homelessness comes typically as a result of that. Everything you do while having these deficiencies and these problems navigating through life is magnified by being homeless. So you're in the public view, which means that people call us and say, will you stop him from bothering us? Will you stop him from drinking over here? Will you stop him from sleeping in my space in front of my business? All these things, will you stop them from fighting? All the things that take place, they get tickets for because you're supposed to, through a ticket, gain behavior modification. Here's the problem: if you can't, because you have these issues that get in the way of you living a normal functioning life that you set out to be when you were 10, 12 years old, thinking I'm going to do this when I grow up, and it never materialized. Those things that got in the way of that are not going to be helped by citations and arrests. So I look at these individuals and say, what do you need? Do you need housing? Let me help you with that. Do you need detox before you go into a housing situation? Then we help them with that. We in restorative court will take their citations that they get from the other officers, because you can't ask the officer to stop giving them tickets for it. It's not set up to work that way. So they'll still get tickets, but now they have a venue to come to restorative court where we say, we'll help you with whatever you need that's reasonable to get you in a harm reduction mode of let's get you back on track. And if for 6 months you don't get any more tickets, citations, arrests, then we drop all this. This is not what we want. The police department does not want to punish you for being mentally ill, homeless, and so on. We want us not to have to go and give you tickets again and again and again with no purpose to you or us.
Let me stop there and ask you how you sort of fit into that trio of competing forces maybe. So you've got your fellow officers, you've got the homeowner or the store owner who complains, and then you have the population of people that you're talking about. That must pull you in a lot of different directions.
It does. So Einstein once said you cannot prepare for war and peace at the same time. And that's really what I have to do every day. We in law enforcement have to satisfy the need of the people that call and say, this is a codified law that says you're not allowed to bother me. There's somebody here bothering me now. Send an officer out. The officer will come out and evaluate what they can do. And the officer is equipped with law enforcement in forms of codes and violations of codes and so forth they have to act on, but they're not hooked in with how to get somebody into a treatment program in Los Angeles. I have, with restorative policing, the freedom to spend the time hooking that person up to these programs, going deep on finding out what's not the symptom of the problem, but what's the cause of the problem. So as the regular officers don't have the time, the tools, and it's not their scope of work to go out and be social workers and help these people, and yet pretty much every officer you ask when they get hired, they ask, why do you want to be a police officer? They say, because I want to help people. Then when you get in the midst of it and you realize you're giving the same homeless person for 20 years the same ticket, they begin to go, wait a second, now it's just an irritant. I don't even think of it as helping him anymore, because it seems that he doesn't want the help.
And that's where you come in.
And that's where the different set of tools come in through that. So that's really the gist of it. How do we take that which is ethical and morally right to do on the demographic that is in need of those services, You still have people that have criminal mindsets and they still do these things and other things that requires they go to jail. They need a timeout from the general public.
Well, tell me a little bit about some success stories, because people might say, well, how often does this work? And what are some of the times where you think back and say, oh, wow, that really was perfect?
So an attorney 20 minutes ago came up and says, hey, I want to talk to you about this guy that you took down to a program in Los Angeles. He has a girlfriend now, and he's integrated into the family, and every weekend he goes and sees this girl. And he was quite difficult. He was quite a problem up here when he was here. He was a young guy that had been in foster care his whole life. When you age out at 18, you're no longer in foster care. Nobody's responsible for you anymore, but you may not have learned the ways to function. So he was homeless here. So I took him to a program in Los Angeles, and he will never say thank you, but his eyes twinkle and he says thank you in all different ways that you just have to understand. And every time I go to LA, he's been there for now 9 months. Every time I see him, he comes up and says hi and hello, and we chit-chat about how things are going. I brought him a guitar amp that he's left behind that he'd forgotten, so I bring it down to him and give it to him, and he was thankful for that, and now he's playing in the band down there. So that's just one, and that's just half an hour ago.
Right.
Every day is filled with stories of successes that happen.
What about the other side of the coin, where you just feel like there's no way I'm going to get through? Does that ever happen?
All the time.
Yeah.
Do you want the one from half an hour ago?
Okay. Yeah.
So what happens is that I try and make the connection with the person. If you ask me for help, that means you can't do it yourself, right?
Okay.
I go from that, I operate from that. If you're asking me for help, then I'll help you. If you then turn around and don't want the help, or the action shows you don't want the help, then we go, wait, stop a second, I thought we were going for this. And if you tell me something else, come, but then we shift gears. To be addicted to drugs and alcohol, to have mental health is a terrible, terrible thing to carry through life. It's hard enough to function when you have all your faculties in order. When you have that thrown on top of you, it's very difficult. So I understand and forgive them for slipping and having a relapse. What happens with the relapses is that they'll call me and say, I'm sorry, Officer Hove, I screwed up. I'm in the park. I've been drinking for the last 3 weeks. Can I come back? So every time I start with somebody that I've worked with before, they call me and say, I screwed up. Can I get back on the horse? Are you mad at me? And the answer is, no, I'm not mad at you. Why would I be mad at you? What is that going to help us? What I'm hearing is you want to come back in again, and we'll try it a little bit more my way. Because last time I gave you suggestions and you wanted it 80% your way. Are you willing to take it 50% your way now? Are you willing to do this, this, and this in exchange for then getting this? Because then you can actually possibly get it and stay good. And they typically will say yes. So we never start from the bottom again. So I have relationships I've had for the last 8, 10 years. Now, that doesn't mean I babysit them every day. It just means they have my phone number, sometimes memorized, and they call and says, I need this, or I got a friend who needs help, or I'm moving from this place to this place and I need a deposit. Can you help me find a way to find the money for that? Or can you, whatever they need, whatever you need to be good, I will help you with it.
So you want to get them into treatment programs. You are able to move them to different places. What if they're from New York State or something, and suddenly their family says, I'd like to take them back home?
So a young couple came, success story, an hour ago, a young family comes, 2 18-year-olds. They ended up in Santa Barbara from Montana, and they made a mistake of coming here because she realized she's pregnant and she really wants to go back where all the support and all the services are. And the Rainbow Festival they were going to is suddenly begin to lose its attraction because the hippies they traveled with, turns out they didn't have the housing for them they'd promised them, so now they're homeless in Santa Barbara and have nowhere of getting home. So they will then start getting tickets for sleeping on the beach. They will get tickets for whatever behavior that's in public. If they have any alcohol or drug issues, which I'm not sure yet, we haven't gone there yet, then they're going to start getting tickets for that. And then they get anchored here with probation and stuff and they can't leave. But they're asking for us a ticket home to Montana. Ticket home to Montana will cost maybe $160 a person. She can be in a house, living there with a family, setting it up, getting going on. He can get a job there with the family that's doing construction. For $160 a person to send them back there with all the right things in place, it's much more economically sound than booking them for $150 every time we book them into jail for crimes.
So that's an ideal outcome. It's generous and economical at the same
And it's
time.
a win-win for both.
Yeah.
It's a win-win for them, they're asking for it. It's a win-win for us because we don't have them as homeless people in Santa Barbara and not knowing what to do, where to go next, and falling into the criminal subculture that exists. When
you look out at the viewers who are watching this program right now, what would you ask them to do? What would you say to them? What's the sort of the pitch that you would make to the typical generous-hearted, I think mostly Santa Barbara citizen?
Misguided compassion does damage.
Okay, explain.
Homelessness is hazardous for your health. So I don't sustain your ability to stay homeless in that spot, in that lifestyle that you're landed in, because you can do that for 10, 15 years. And these people degrade very quickly, physically and mentally. I don't believe in giving socks and meals to the people that are living out there to sustain them out there. I believe in guiding them to where those services are available, and then within those services also get a step up so that you can continuously move forward and upward. We will help them, and it takes much more help than the average person is willing to give. The average person and the average agency will be willing to service their clients by giving them a little bit of that which they think they need, but not give them beyond and above. And if you give them above and beyond what they need, you get results. If you give them the bare minimum, you don't get results with this population. So socks and cigarettes and food in the park, it's not enough. It sustains you. They're already having issues not being able to function in normal, prescribed ways of having a normal life that keeps you out of the public eye of law enforcement, hospital bills, all the things that is negative for everybody involved. Help them get up. Help them get housing. Find housing for them. Help them do those things. $5 in your pocket is great, but what will you do with the $5 if you can't figure the other things out? It was nice you gave them $5. It was nice you gave them socks. I have socks and cigarettes in my car at all times because sometimes people need that, but I don't make a point of going out and distributing it. I make a point out of making myself available to take it to the next level and the next level.
Right. Well, it's been a real pleasure to talk with you, Officer Hove. Great work you're doing. Much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it and appreciate the time. Thank you.
Well, I'm here now in the chapel of the Santa Barbara Rescue Mission with President of the Rescue Mission, Rolf Geyling. Rolf, thanks so much for having us here.
Oh, thanks for being here. It's great to have you.
Yeah, well, we're really interested in the work that you do here. The mission is over on Yananoli Street. People will have driven by or seen it from the freeway, but they may not know exactly what it is that you do here. So could you kind of give us a little bit of a breakdown?
Well, there's a lot of activity that goes here on here at the Rescue Mission. On any given night, we have well over 200 people under our roof in all of our programs. As most people would expect a rescue mission to do, we provide emergency food and shelter to people who have no place else to turn or for those resources. And then we also have a long-term drug and alcohol recovery program where we have a residential program for 69 clients who spend a year with us. Then we also have outpatient treatment and also long-term sober living for people that are trying to re-enter society.
Talk a little bit about the pressure to get people in and to house.
Well, our nightly, count is typically probably from around 80 people to as many as 120 people before we really hit the upward edge of our capacity.
Right.
There's a lot of different organizations working to provide emergency services to people who are struggling with homelessness or on the verge of becoming homeless. Right. And so within that, one of the real areas of focus that we have within our shelter program is to be a no questions asked walk-in shelter. I mean, really the entry level for people who have no place else to turn. There's no other place between Santa Maria and Ventura that offers no questions asked shelter 365 days a year. And so that's one of the things that our donors make it possible for us to do for people that find themselves in any kind of challenging circumstance to find emergency shelter for a short-term period.
Okay. You were talking about your focus on substance abuse treatment. Yeah. Why is that important for you guys?
Obviously, the homeless population has a number of different challenges facing it, and here in our community, as we do our surveys of the homeless every 2 years, obviously substance abuse has a high occurrence among those who are homeless. Every year we survey, it comes well over 50%, and some people would say anecdotally it's much higher. And so what we've realized is, while we feel like we want to extend compassion and hospitality to people in adverse situations, we really want to help them out of it. And so we have focused our efforts over the years on just one of the primary causes, drug and alcohol addiction, which tends to keep people on the margins.
I look around as we've been walking around the space. This is a mission, so there's a Christian element to it. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, we are a faith-based charity. We welcome people of all faiths or and people who don't have any religious faith at all. It's The rescue mission has a rich tradition that we maintain to this day, that we do what we do because of our commitment as Christian people. We extend God's love to people in difficult situations. And so that pervades what we do. It's, for us, an integral part of faith is that we help those who are struggling. So, our hope is not that we're not necessarily requiring any kind of religious behavior from people. You can come to the rescue mission, and chapel is voluntary, but we believe people should experience the love of God when they come in here, and so that's what we try to extend to people, that kind of transformative love that gives them hope.
And this chapel we're in, if people could look over there, they would see mattresses, and there's also a place for people to sleep at night.
Unfortunately, that's out of necessity. Right. We have been in overflow here at the rescue mission for the last 3 years, and we have some hopes of doing some adjustments to our facilities so that we'd be able to kind of accommodate people a little bit better. But what typically happens is we have a lot of multi-purpose spaces, and right now the fact is that almost every night of the year we have about 20 people sleeping in our chapel, just because we don't have the dorm space to accommodate them.
Tell me a little bit about some success stories that resonate for you over the years. When you think about, that's a memory that I kind of hold on to when I have a little bit of moments of doubt.
We had a woman named Janice who made it through our treatment program, and I remember when she spoke at the graduation, she just simply, in 30 seconds said, "Man, I'm so grateful for what God did here in my life, because 12 months ago, I was pushing my shopping cart up and down Milpas Street." And she basically thanked one of our rescue mission donors and volunteers who stopped one morning on our way into Trader Joe's, who helped her and pointed her toward the rescue mission. And when she got here, she came into our women's treatment program and was surrounded by people of faith and compassion who cared for her, but also people who had the clinical acumen to address drug and alcohol addiction and resource her as far as some dual diagnosis mental illness. And what's amazing about that is, this is a woman who pushed her shopping cart up and down Milpas for 8 years. And that's a remarkable transformation, and that's one of over 600 people now that have graduated our treatment program.
I'm curious how you yourself got involved in this work.
Well, one of the things as a person of faith that has always been a challenge to me is, I believe that faith in God brings hope and transformation into our lives. But one of the things I have to acknowledge is I'm a person of privilege who was born into an upper middle class situation. And so it always felt a little bit disingenuous to talk about Jesus bringing hope into my life. And so it's always been a challenge to me of what does it mean for faith to have that kind of transformation and to bring that kind of hope to people who don't have those kind of things going for them. And so my life is kind of a journey professionally, and that's one of the things that I find so refreshing and exciting about the rescue mission is that when taking my background as a nonprofit executive and a fundraiser and being able to bring those gifts to bear for the benefit of a population that truly is hungry for hope. Yeah, it's neat, and we have a great community with a neat philanthropic spirit that just makes this work possible. So it's a great place to be in.
Well, I guess the very last question I want to ask, then following up on that, is you have this support, and you have so many people of good faith and good effort here. Is there anything that we aren't doing that we could do to help the people who come into the rescue mission?
Well, I think we need to understand, first of all, we need to just, there are important conversations to have as a community about whether or not we're enabling people or whether we're helping them too much or whether we're being taken advantage of. And that is something we encounter on a daily basis here. But
what do you think?
Well, I think, yes, that happens. I think certainly regularly. I think the other thing is that, but you cannot completely categorize that. And we really, we are in danger of something pretty severe if we lose compassion when we look at somebody suffering. And one of the things that I love about my staff and the team here at the rescue mission is we can look at somebody and hold them responsible for how they behave within their circumstances and appropriately hold them responsible for moving out of them. But we do that while retaining compassion for them, because whether the adverse circumstances I find myself in are of my own doing or completely inflicted upon me, as a human being, we really need to kind of hold out compassion to people who suffer. And that's one thing as I talk to clients who come into the rescue mission, there are just really tragic stories, and everything from just trauma they've endured to untreated mental illness. And so I think as we have conversations and as we certainly draw boundaries on what constitutes help and what doesn't, it's very important for us to remember that we need to be compassionate in the face of people suffering.
Yeah, well, nice words to end on. Thank you so much for having us here, Rolf.
Well, thanks for coming.
So I'm talking now with Aviva Scherer here at the Santa Barbara Rescue Mission. Aviva, tell me a little bit about yourself, how you find yourself at the mission.
I will say what I love about the rescue mission is we don't enable people. There's no micromanagement. It is self-accountability, self-responsibility. As long as they are honest and open with us, our director or supervisor of homeless guest services will give them a chance, will give them an extension so that they can get up on their feet again.
When you were talking, I was thinking, it sounds like there might be some issues that are different for women who are coming to the mission than there are for men. Is that true?
For the most part, yes, because some of the women that have been outside, unfortunately and very unfortunately, have been raped. So we're dealing with that type of intervention as well. And so as many women as we can get off the street who choose to come in, this is part of what we do here as well.
Well, let's sort of finish by letting you talk to the people out there on TV. What would you say about the mission and maybe how people can help?
We have a gamut of people, I will say for the most part, extraordinary human beings that have just have fallen through the cracks, that are trying to get themselves up and out again. And I'd say, please support the rescue mission because their cause is absolutely outstanding, from recovery to homelessness. And we have seen extraordinary results.
Well, thanks so much for talking with us.
Thank you.
I'm speaking now with Joy Williams here, still at the Santa Barbara Rescue Mission. What sort of problems are the other folks that you're helping?
The common thing I think is when you get into the situation is not to feel oppressed and feel labeled and feel pushed back and held back and too bad you shouldn't be in that situation. There's a lot of there's some judgment and there's some oppression that goes on because how'd you get in that situation? People are, it's upsetting and they don't want to understand it. So you got to keep your spirits up, and it's hard. You got to, and so it's great that we have. I find this place to be really cool. I think it's probably the better place I've ever been to, and I've been all over. I went to the East Coast and did all kinds of places. So of all of them, this one does a really good job with feeding people and pretty reasonable expectations. Be respectful of one another, show up on time. Certain hours you have to get up and sleep, but other than that, you're on your own. They want you to be independent. So
thanks so much for talking with us, Joy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for asking.
So I'm here now with Jennifer Parks, the general manager of McDermott-Crockett Mortuary. Jennifer, we're here because your mortuary is one of the places in town where people go at the end of their life when they don't have any place else to go. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, if we know that there are no family that can be reached, then we work with the public administrator's office. If they do their due diligence to find family, so if there's anyone, anywhere, they usually will take the time to find them and do the research they need to do to make sure that we are honoring them, and especially if they're a veteran, making sure that if they're entitled to go to a veteran cemetery, that we do that. If there is no one, or if there is no one that objects, then we proceed with cremation and then scatter their remains at sea.
Well, how did McDermott-Crockett get to be one of the places in town that does this?
Really just the availability. We avail ourselves to anyone who needs us without regard for their ability to pay. So, of course the county pays for services, and we accommodate within budget. The most important thing is to take care of people and honor their life and honor their story, and make sure that everyone is taken care of with dignity and respect. And everyone is someone. So oftentimes I think people lose sight of the fact that that's somebody's kid.
Tell me a little bit about some of maybe the most memorable services that you can remember for homeless people who have come here.
Well, for us, we love the story. Everybody has a story, and probably the most memorable was a man named Dean who died 9/11/2010, and the county did find his mom, so she was able to participate in the arrangements in that she would sign the legal documents, and we were able to get the information we needed for the death certificate. But she wasn't able to pay, and she lived in Michigan, I think. And Dean was an alcoholic, and he was homeless, but he was also an artist, and he was also her firstborn, and he was also a really loving and loyal friend. And for me, it was the first time I really realized we have an obligation and responsibility to tell their story if we can. And so many people are unclaimed. You know, there are lots of people who nobody shows up for.
And what is that service like?
We'd usually do that in June. We've just done it a couple years, but we call it Hearts of Compassion. It's a service to acknowledge everyone we've taken care of that hasn't had anyone have a service for them or acknowledge their passing. So we invite any community members who are interested in coming. We work with restorative policing and with other agencies that take care of homeless people, and they come and we have an actual funeral service.
So if someone wanted to attend one of these services, someone who didn't know the deceased, how would they find out about it?
It would be on our website,
Okay.
and it's usually held the second or third week in June.
Okay.
But typically about that time of year, and everyone is welcome, and everyone is welcome to bring their stories. And because the idea of having a funeral service is not to be morbid or to be sad necessarily. It is how we as community heal and acknowledge that someone was here and now they're not. And when we come together in community that way, we really make a difference. And it could be you could be making a difference with one person or an entire room. That's why we do those things.
As we finish up, any final words, having done this over the years, that kind of come to mind for you?
There's so much beauty and blessing in this work, and being able to help someone really just breathe and grab their hand and sort of walk that first steps of the path of really healing, and that journey of grief is so important and rewarding. And I personally wouldn't do anything else. I love this work.
Thanks so much for talking with us, Jennifer.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks again to Jennifer Parks of McDermott-Crockett Mortuary, also Rolf Geyling of the Santa Barbara Rescue Mission, and Officer Keld Hove of the Santa Barbara Police Department. I'm David Starkey, and this is Santa Barbara.